Hey guys, what is going on? It is Dennis here and welcome to another guide video. It's been a long time since I've done a guide and I really want to come back to this. So today's guide we're going to be talking about Chaos Vellum. I know in the video it's obviously quite laggy and of course it is only a fire poison mage doing it, but I want to get across the message that this guide is for any character. So it doesn't matter what character you play, you should be able to use this guide and actually benefit from it. So Vellum in general, what you need to know is, well, bossing in general rather, if you can do Vellum on one character, you most likely are able to do it on another character. Say for example, if you can do Vellum on a Night Lord, I should be able to give you another character, like, I don't know, just some random example, a Wild Hunter for example. You should be able to moderately do Vellum, you know, you might not be able to understand the Wild Hunter's mechanisms, but if you can do Vellum on a Night Lord, you should be able to understand Vellum's mechanisms, to say the least. So even if you don't know how to play the Wild Hunter specifically, you should be able to still survive at the very least. So first of all comes survival, and when you're practicing Vellum, I urge you to practice just survival. And survival will just be there's a fireball, you dodge it, there's a tail, you dodge it, there's a stun, you dodge it. You know, it's that's how you really start off in Vellum. You go inside and you just survive. Try to survive as long as you can and try to understand the hitboxes and the timings. And beyond just survival, however, you really want to, as you do Vellum more and more and more and you practice more, beyond just surviving him, you really want to start learning where to stand and when to attack and how to attack. And this is really what we're going to cover in this guide. Now, what I want to get across is the fact that even if you just watch this guide, you're not going to magically be able to do Vellum afterwards. You know, this guide isn't some magic, and there's no such thing as magic in terms of watching a whole bunch of KMS godly people do Vellum and all of a sudden you try it and you can succeed in one go. It doesn't happen, or I'm sure someone can do it, but I've never met anybody that could actually do it. So what you really want to do for Vellum is you really want to understand timings, and for this whole entire guide I will continually say the word timing because timing is so important in Vellum. For example, if you're buffing, none of your buffs should last 20 minutes long. I know my Maple Warrior does last like 23 minutes long, but most of your buffs are not going to last 23 minutes long, which means you're most likely going to have to, I mean not most likely, you will have to rebuff in Vellum, unless you cap with no buffs, in which case I digress. But most of us are not going to be able to cap unbuffed. So what that means is we need to learn our buff sequences. We need to learn which buffs have the longest animations. Long animations will get you killed. So, well, it won't get you killed if you know what you're doing. But nonetheless, you need to learn which buffs you want to use first, which buffs have the shortest durations, which buffs have the longest animation delays. All those kinds of things are very important, and I urge you to get pets. 3 pets that have auto buff gems, or you know, just however many pets you really want to get. 3 is obviously the maximum, but I urge you to use these pets to buff you, and you know, as much as possible use those pets because it's quite important. However, don't be 100% reliant on the pets because sometimes the auto buffs don't work all the time. But nonetheless, yeah, definitely buff sequences, work the timings out for buff sequences, work the timings out for all those kinds of things. And along the lines of timing as well, understand when the stun rocks fall when they show up. You know, if there's a circle that shows up on the ground, understand when the stun rock will fall, when the tails will fall, when the fireball comes out, when the slimes come out, and you know, when Vellum uses the fireballs and when he uses the slimes, because he does have specific timings for all those things. And of course I will talk about that right now. Vellum does not use the same attack back to back, so he'll use, like, say for example, if after he uses slime he may use fireball, but he will never use slime and slime like back to back. So that's quite important to understand. So yeah, we'll talk more specifically about this later, but let's go ahead and talk about spawning Vellum. You know, when you just click the altar and Vellum comes out. Again, I talk about timings. When I spawn Vellum, I understand when he actually first pops out. So while I click the altar, I'm buffing myself up. Every character has their own set of buffs. Even Yunwalls, they barely have any buffs at all. They do have their own hyper skill buffs. So most characters, I mean all characters, have hyper skill buffs, or they have some sort of setups. You know, Xenons have hypergram fields. You could be a Night Lord using your charm or your lightning star looking thingy. So every single character does have their own set of things. You know, Kaiser's got that dragon stone thingy that they can put on the ground. So try to use those, try to maximize your DPS, and try to use all your skills that need to be put into cooldown and put them into cooldowns so you can actually maximize your damage. So, you know, that's important. And of course, learn when he actually pops up, because when he pops up, you could just get one hit killed. So, in terms of learning Vellum and doing it, I urge you to just spend time in Vellum, because a lot of my friends, you know, they rage quit. They try to learn Vellum in one day, and most people can't learn Vellum in a single day. So spend some time, you know, every single day. Just do 1 or 2 runs in Vellum and just call it a day. You know, you might just get your ass kicked, but go in there a couple times and call it a day. The next day, try it again and again and again. And a lot of my friends, you know, they're really upset by this because they never seem to make any progress. But, you know, then one day they continue doing it, and then all of a sudden one day they reach a catharsis. They reach an awakening where all of a sudden they understand everything. And then all of a sudden they can just solo Vellum. So that's, you know, like, you know, everybody's learning style is different, but, you know, some people, they just understand it quite quickly. Other people, they have to take a while to do it. But nonetheless, whatever the kind of person you are, you should be able to learn how to Vellum with time and practice. So that's really all the general information. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about some little tips and tricks, and then finally we're going to talk about all the attacks. And after I cover all the attacks, you know, for the most part when I mention these attacks, I'm going to try to cover all the specifics that I can, but if I do mention anything, I will talk about it again at the end of the video. So usually I start off the video, and when I start off the video, you know, I have all my ideas on paper. But by the time I'm at the end of the video, this is when my brain has been heated up and when I've got everything that I wanted to say, and all of a sudden I remember some more important facts. So I do urge you to watch the video all the way through if you want to get the most benefit out of it, because usually most of my guides I do mention a lot of important things at the end, which is not that good, but I guess that's just how my brain works. So let's talk about cleansing potions. Now I want to first get across the message that Hero's Will is completely useless in Chaos Vellum. I know a lot of good bossers, you know, good bossers, they should know where their Hero's Will button is. Like the moment they get seduced or something, their finger immediately just jumps to the Hero's Will button, just smashes on that button, and they immediately cure their status effect. Unfortunately, Cleansing Potion does not work in Chaos Vellum. Unfortunately, Hero's Will does not work in Chaos Vellum. However, there is an alternative, which is the Cleansing Potion. Cleansing Potion also has a 5-minute cooldown, and it removes stun. What you need to know about Cleansing Potions are they're pretty easy to obtain, I'd say. You can buy them in the FM for around 6 mil each, which is pretty expensive for a potion. But of course, I say it's definitely worth it, because if you already deal enough damage to go into Vellum, then you should definitely be able to afford these potions. When you're practicing, you don't actually have to use the cleansing potions, because, you know, that'd be pretty expensive to do every single time. But when you're actually doing a serious run, definitely do carry those cleansing potions. And what you need to know about cleansing potions is, of course, after you use a potion, it's really hard to use a potion then use a mobility skill immediately afterwards, which basically means if you get stunned, you have to quickly recognize the situation. Quickly recognize, once again, the word timing. Quickly recognize the timings. Recognize the fact that if there's a tail under you, see if you can actually get out of it without using the cleansing potion. Understand those timings. Because those little tight timings, those are the things that you need to understand for Vellum, because the whole entire run is going to be pretty tight, you know. You're going to be weaving and going in between those little tiny gaps that Vellum gives you. So that's definitely quite important. So Yeah, that's along the lines of cleansing potions. Definitely use those early. And now this is the most important message, I feel. And a lot of people, they don't understand this. And this hopefully, by listening to this tip, if you're good at, like, if you've been doing Vellum for a while but you still can't figure out why you can't solo it, like you hit damage cap and you're quite good at it, like you're quite strong already, but for some reason you still can't get Vellum down even though you put a lot of practice into it, this might be what you really need. As a bosser, if you are soloing Vellum, what you need to understand is when you solo Vellum, basically Vellum is going to follow you. For the most part, Vellum will be following behind where you go. And a lot of bossers, they go into Vellum. I talked about this earlier. I talked about going into Vellum first and just learning how to survive in Vellum. You know, you jump around and you really just dodge the fireballs, you dodge the tails, you dodge the stun rocks that fall. And a lot of bossers, they do this kind of stuff, right? And then, you know, they're just dodging and all of a sudden they try to actually solo it. And they put that same kind of playstyle that they did when they just first started into Vellum. And that is a huge mistake because what I feel when I Vellum is I don't move that frequently. I'm very controlled in my movement, not so much in this video, but in general when I do boss, I'm very controlled in my movement. I don't move that much. I do micro adjustments here and there, but you know, I don't flash jump back and forth all around the map like crazy, you know. And what you have to understand about when you first start off in Vellum is when you first start off, your goal is just to not die. But then as you progress into Vellum, your goal should start turning into doing the most damage possible. And you know, survival should not even be something you should think about because that's just basic stuff. So a lot of bossers, they cap and they go into Vellum, they practice it, but they still can't figure out why they're not succeeding. And the reason why they're not succeeding is because their placement is incorrect. And here's the little thing that I was mentioning earlier, not little, it's a big thing. And this is probably the most important thing you need to know. When you are soloing Vellum, Vellum targets you, which means if you do something, Vellum will respond with something else, which basically means if you stand in one place, Vellum will follow you and do something, which basically means, again, a lot of bossers, they say something like, oh, I got cornered by Vellum and he killed me. And that's not true at all. The reason why you got cornered is because you walked into the corner and Vellum followed you to the corner. And it may not be immediately, but if you record your runs and you'll see, like, you know, four moves before you got cornered, you'll see that you moved in an incorrect way and Vellum followed you and ultimately did corner you. The thing you need to understand is Vellum is not, like, Vellum doesn't actually have a brain of his own, if you want to say it like that. Vellum follows you. So that means as a bosser, you need to pick the correct locations, which will allow you to you pick where Vellum goes, basically. So I urge you, when you're practicing, I urge you to just, like, I don't know, drop an item at the altar and drop an item at another place, you know, like not too far off, less than even a screen length. Less than a screen length of distance, just drop two potions or something on the ground. And I urge you, while you're practicing, to just run back and forth within that little zone and keep Vellum in that little zone. This will make you a very controlled bosser, and this will be the breakthrough that you need. If you already hit damage cap and you put in the practice, you know all of Vellum's attacks, but you still can't succeed, this is most likely the thing that will break you through and actually allow you to succeed in the Vellum run. So placement is very important. I talk about timings, I talk about placement, all those kinds of things. This is about bossing control, and this is about learning Vellum's mechanisms. And once again, earlier in the video, or in the beginning of the video, I said if you're a Nightwalker that can do, or if you're a Night Lord that can do Vellum, you should be able to do Vellum on other characters as well. And this comes from an understanding of the boss mechanics. So even if you don't know the character that you're playing, you should at least understand Vellum's mechanics. Still, even it doesn't matter what character you're playing, you should understand the boss mechanics, and if you also understand the character mechanics, you should be able to solo it on that character as well. So this is once again what comes from being a good bosser, is the understanding that you can do it on any character. So that is probably some of the most important information. Once again, I will repeat it real quickly, just one sentence. Vellum follows you. Well, I guess this is more than one sentence now. Vellum follows you, therefore it is your job as the solo bosser to control Vellum. And, you know, like, to highlight this more, you know, if you stand in one place, the tail will most likely target you at that place. So understand when the tails will target you and all those kinds of things. And if you can understand this, this will make you a better Vellum bosser. Okay, so let's move on to the next section. The next section will be regarding, once again, some more general information, because once again in the beginning I did say that this guide is for any character that you want to play. Let's talk about mobility skills. Now we're talking about teleport versus flash jump. Now, you know, like, a lot of people prefer flash jump, but I'm here to say teleport is the easier skill to use. Nonetheless, flash jump, obviously you can still do it, but you know, teleport is the easier skill to use. So if you're a Nightwalker, you do have a backstep. If you're a Yunwall, you have a backstep. If you're a Fire Poison Mage, you have a teleport. You know, a lot of characters do have teleports. So any character that has a teleport and you know, and or dark sight, because dark sight is also very useful, it's quite a lot easier to do Vellum. So basically, along the lines of teleport, we will also go ahead and combine this discussion with the first part of my information about Vellum's attack, Fireball. And Fireball, it would be, of course, the most pervasive attack during Vellum. Fireball occurs immediately when you spawn Vellum, all the way up until the point where you kill Vellum. So Vellum uses Fireball during the whole entire run. So if you learn Fireball and you learn everything you need to know about Fireball, you can inflict the most amount of damage possible. And again, we will combine this discussion with teleport versus flash jump, because I feel like this will help you illustrate the importance and the differences between both mobility skills. So, talking about teleport, imagine a scenario where Vellum is facing you and he's spitting out fireballs. Now, the fact is, he's spitting out fireballs, but ignore the fact that the fireballs are being spit, because the fireballs won't hit you. He's just spitting them out. Now, what you need to know is Vellum is above ground for quite a while he's spitting out those 3 fireballs, and while he's spitting out the fireballs, those tails will be targeting you, and there will be stun rocks falling down. Now, obviously, your goal would be to dodge the tails, dodge the fireballs, dodge the stun rocks, and inflict the most damage possible. Easier said than done, right? What you need to know is, along the lines of teleport, you'll see it a lot in this video, actually, even though this video is pretty shitty and laggy. Teleport, what I like to do is I like to stand still, and you may be like, thinking, what the hell, you're crazy, don't stand still, you know, because I stand still in Vellum, and I just stand still, I wait for those tails to target me, and when like 5 tails, or not 5, like when 3 tails or so target me, I teleport out of the way at the last second, and then you'll see as soon as I teleport, those tails come up, and I would have died if I just stayed there another split second longer. And this is the advantage with teleport. You can stand still and just let those tails stack up. You know, like, any character has this. And when I mean teleport, I'm talking about any mobility skill. Let's talk about, I already mentioned Yunwall's backstep, I mentioned Nightwalker's backstep. I'm talking about a Buccaneer. Buccaneer has rush. You know, they have that forward rush skill. A Shadower. Shadowers have a forward dash. A Dawn Warrior has a forward dash as well. A Dark Knight, a Paladin, a Hero, all those 3 characters also have rush. You know, a lot of characters have a forward moving attack, and that's what I mean by teleport. All of those skills constitute what teleport means to me. So any skill that allows you to move forward, you can really just stand still, stack the attacks, and at the last second you can teleport out of the way and you can continue your attacking. Obviously, this is just another option for you. It's not necessarily the best option, because there are other characters who have other ways of dodging. For example, if you're a paladin, you can use rush to get out the way, or you can just jump attack. You know, you can just continually jump attack, and you can just jump and move out the way as you're attacking. You know, I'm not saying flash jump. I just mean jump attack, jump attack, jump attack, and you can move out the way. Or, of course, as a paladin, you can just tank, but we're not going to talk about that. So, yeah, any character, you know, this is general information, of course, but you as your specific the specific character you play, you have to understand those, like you'll understand every little specific trick yourself. So that is the discussion with teleport. What you need to know, once again, I'll repeat it in a better way. Teleport, what the most important thing to know about teleport is that you really just need to pay attention to the tail circles. You know, those fireballs and those stun rocks that fall, you do obviously need to dodge those, but your main focus should be on the tails. And you look at those tails, and as soon as those tails show up, that's what dictates when you move. So for someone who has teleport, you look at the tails, and let's, you know, that hopefully this discussion isn't too jumbled. Let's talk about flash jump now. And flash jump, what you need to know is, obviously you do want to dodge the tails, as those are the things that kill you. However, what dictates your movement is not the tail circle. Rather, it will be when the stun rock falls. And when the stun rock falls, say for example, you want to, well, let's use the same scenario, you know, say for example, you've got flash jump, but you do not have a teleport, you know, so you're doing the same thing as I would do for a mage. You know, I'm playing my fire poison mage, I stand still, I continue attacking, at the last second I teleport out of the way. So let's use the same scenario. I have flash jump, right? I'm attacking, I'm standing still, 3 tails come under me, I try to use flash jump. Because flash jump is not instantaneous, I still get hit and I still die. And that is one problem with flash jump. The other problem with flash jump is the fact that stun rocks will fall. Now let's talk about stun rocks. Say for example, I don't stand still for that long and I try to flash jump, however there's a stun rock falling. I flash jump anyways, the stun rock falls, it interrupts me midway, I get stunned, I'm still within range, and I get hit by the tail. Unfortunately, flash jump users cannot do the same thing that teleport users can do. Teleport users, once again, can just stand still, stack the tails, and teleport at the last second. And they're quite organized of bossers. Flash jump, you have to move earlier. And the dictation for movement will be on when the stun rock falls. When you see those stun rocks, move in front of the stun rock, you know? And this could be any character, really. Like, if you're playing a Phantom that uses rapid fire, or a Mercedes that uses Ishtar's Ring, a Wind Archer, for example. Wind Archers do have that forward teleport wind walk skill, but you know, depending on the situation, you might just want to do it a certain way, you know. So if you have a flash jump, you really want to move ahead of the stun rock. So you see a tail forming under you and you see a stun rock falling, move ahead of where that stun rock is and just move ahead of the stun rock, so when the stun falls, the tail is not under you. So that's, you know, that's good. The problem with people who are beginner bossers using flash jump in Chaos Vellum is their bossing style is quite sporadic. They just jump around and they try to survive, and that's good. Again, survival is good, but once again, placement is very important. So after you move out of the stage of just learning how to survive and you really want to start damaging Vellum, you really want to start focusing on placement. So yeah, that is the talk between teleport versus flash jump in Vellum. Once again, teleport, you just want to follow and pay attention to the tails that form under you, and flash jump, you want to pay attention more to the stun rocks. So once again, I did want to combine this discussion with Fireball, and Fireball, of course, he comes up and he spits 3 fireballs out. The first fireball is quite close, the second fireball is far away, and the third fireball is somewhere in the middle. The most important thing to know is well, obviously, once again, you just really want to know the timings. And of course, the other little thing that you do need to know is when Vellum is going down. As soon as he uses Fireball, when he's going down, if you stand too close to him, he will knock you back. And the knockback is quite dangerous, because if there's a tail behind you and you get knocked back, you get hit by the tail, or you get knocked back into a stun rock, and either way, you get stunned, and that is a bad thing. So yeah, that's along the lines of Fireball. It's a very you would think it's a very basic attack since he uses it in the beginning of the run. However, it's the most important attack to understand because he uses it all the way through. Once again, you learn Fireball, you will get the most DPS possible. So Fireball, I feel like, is the key. You learn how to do Fireball, you learn how to move, where to stand, all those kinds of things. You learn how his tails time. You will understand everything about Vellum. Okay, so let's talk about the next attack. The next two attacks that Vellum uses, these are really basic. If you know Fireball, you can basically handle these two attacks quite easily. The first attack is his stand up tall. He just comes up really tall and he goes back down. Generally speaking, you should be able to get 4 hits depending on what job you are. Obviously, if you're using rapid fire, you'll get way more than 4 hits in. But generally speaking, if you're, say for example, a paladin using blast, you'll get like 4 hits in, maybe 5 if you have attack speed +1. But whatever character you play, a Night Lord, you should get like 4 hits in or 4 star throws in. So yeah, 4 hits in generally speaking. Some characters do get more than others, but every character has their own pros and cons. And 4 hits in. For this mode, you really just want to attack him, and one tail will pop up. So just pay attention to that. Next attack. The next attack is his slouched over coming up attack, and he just slouches over, and generally speaking, you'll get fewer hits on him for this mode. For my fire poison mage, personally, I get 4 hits in when he comes up straight, and when he comes up slouched over, I get 3 hits. So this mode is obviously you'll get less damage in, but it's also an important mode to understand. Once again, only one tail will pop up here. What you need to know about this mode is his hitbox, or his AoE, if you want to call it that. His area of effect is a little bit bigger than when he's coming up straight. When he comes up straight, he's got a circle, and it's easier to dodge. But when he comes up slouched over, his reach will be a little bit bigger. You'll see it as I'm just doing Vellum in the video. You'll see that I get knocked around a few times here and there, and that is because his hit is a little bit wider than it actually is. So definitely pay attention to the fact that he can knock you around. And some things to pay attention to, a little bit more of details, are the fact that if you have higher % status resist, you can actually ignore the fact that he will stun you. So he has a chance to stun you when he knocks you back with that skill. So high % status resist will allow you to avoid getting stunned, which is important because, once again, Vellum does not repeat his attacks. So if you use a slouched over, the next attack he might use will be a fireball, and assuming you get knocked back to certain direction. Most likely, Vellum's mechanism is designed to where after he knocks you back one time, you're stunned, and his first fireball should hit you. So that's how he was designed. So you definitely want to avoid getting stunned. And of course, even if you don't get stunned with your high % status resist, you can still get stunned by the rocks that fall down. So yeah, definitely dodge that. And those are the 3 attacks. When you start off Vellum, you first summon Vellum. Those are the 3 attacks: the fireball, he comes up tall, and finally the slouched over attack. So all those 3 attacks, very basic. And yeah, and let's continue the discussion into the next attack. And this next attack is his Lunge, and basically Prince 2 calls it coming out of the closet, where Vellum basically has a huge oval on the ground, and he jumps across that whole entire oval. And if you're within that oval, you will most likely, you're obviously going to die. So this once again goes along the discussion where I say don't get stunned, because if you get stunned and he uses this attack, it's quite difficult to get out of the way. So again, we're going to talk about timings, because timings are just so important. So along the lines of timings, a lot of people panic. They're not stunned, and they're just standing in the middle of the circle as soon as Vellum uses that attack. What you need to know is just be calm. The stun rocks will most likely fall at around this time, so move to a place where you're good. Stand still, let the stun rocks fall, and after the stuns fall, immediately use your mobility skills and get the hell out of the way. And don't panic, because a lot of people panic. They try to flash jump, they flash jump into a stun because they tried to flash jump too early, and they ultimately died. Just wait for the stun rocks to fall, and then after the stun rocks fall, immediately get out the way. So other things you need to know about this. Lunge is a very, very, very simple attack, but a lot of people mess up on this fact. The fact is, again, I talk about how many hits you can get into Vellum, and I feel like this is an important part of Velluming, is timings and little mechanisms and all that kind of stuff. When Vellum comes up and just comes up straight, you get around 4 hits in. When Vellum comes up slouched over, you usually get like 3 hits in. When Vellum is doing Lunge, most characters will only get 1 hit in, and that is it. However, people put so much emphasis in this, and they attack Vellum and try to get that 1 hit. And it's pretty useless, you know. I feel like it's pretty useless to just get 1 poke in. So instead of just getting 1 poke in, what I highly recommend is during this time when you've got Vellum down to the stage where he lunges, this is around the time when Vellum, when your buffs start going away, if they haven't gone away already. So at around this time, you really want to rebuff your decent skills, rebuff your, you know, your main skills, whatever you want to do, all those kinds of things. Make the adjustments that you need to make, and do it during this time, because during this time he's got a huge pause, while at the same time only a very small fraction of time where he allows you to hit him. So don't attack him, just rebuff, because this will actually save you DPS, because a lot of people, I see them rebuffing when Vellum's doing Fireball, because obviously when Vellum is doing Fireball, and say for example he's shooting at the left side, a lot of people just flash jump all the way to the right side where it's safe and rebuff. And yeah, you can do that, but once again, Fireball is a huge opportunity for you to DPS, so you definitely want to pay attention to that. Next attack, when you start doing more and more and more damage to him, we're going to talk about the most deadly attack that fucks people up, basically. This is the green attack. A lot of people have their own name for it. Some people call it slime, some people call it poison, and it's basically the attack where he comes up slouched over and the poison starts falling, and there's also a lot of tails that come, and it's a very scary attack, I'll have to say. When I first started doing Vellum, especially as a fire poison mage, where I had all this poison gas everywhere, I couldn't understand what was going on because there's just too much animations and, you know, all that kind of shit going on. So let's simplify this attack. There are stun rocks falling, there are tails, and there are green marks on the ground. The green marks do damage over time, but that is negligible. As long as you have pet heal, you shouldn't worry about that. So just really ignore the damage that you take from the green slimes. All you really need to know is stun rocks fall, stun rocks fall, the tails come up, and the fact that the green slimes that fall from the ceiling can knock you back. So let's talk about knockback. If you watch a lot of KMS videos, a lot of KMSers, they don't even use Mihail Link skill. Like you can look at their key configuration, and Mihail Link skill is right there. It's not even on cooldown, and you wonder to yourself, okay, they have Mihail Link skill, it's literally there on their button, but why are they not using it? What you need to know is, of course, if your character has 100% stance or a high amount of stance, that's pretty good. But if you're a character like me, like a fire poison mage, which has 0% stance, and we are highly reliant on Mihail Link skill, say for example we use Mihail Link skill and we die. We revive, and all of a sudden our Mihail Link skill is on cooldown, and we have to somehow figure out how to attack Vellum when we have no stance at all. During this time, a lot of people fuck up, and the run just goes completely downhill. Now, green attack is a scary attack, so don't get me wrong, it is pretty scary. And before I highlight green attack, let's highlight one other thing. A lot of newbies or a lot of people that die and don't have Mihail Link skill, they tend to run away during this attack. And there's nothing wrong with running away if you hit damage cap, because if you cap, most likely you don't actually need to do all the damage possible, because within 20 minutes you should be able to kill Vellum if you cap, depending on what character you play. So a lot of people run away, and after the green slime attack is done, they try to run back, and this is what I feel like to be a mistake. Don't just run back recklessly, because sometimes you run back and you don't see it, but the lunge is happening, and Vellum is coming out the closet again, like whatever you want to say. He's lunging and you run right into it, because the lunge circle does not stay there forever. So the lunge circle may be gone and Vellum may be attacking, and you may not be able to see it and you may die. Either that, or the other thing that Vellum most likely does is he uses Fireball. So if you run away and you try to run back, you might get hit by a Fireball. So this once again comes back to what I say, know the Fireball timings and know the 3 Fireballs. The first one's close, the second one is far away, the third one is in the middle. So based off of what Fireball you see, you can really judge how far into the attack Vellum is and when to come back. So yeah, that if you really need to run away, that's something you need to know. Fireball usually comes afterwards. But let's talk about the green attack itself. Say for example Vellum comes up and he's facing the left side and he's using the green attack. That means if he's facing the left side, the knockback will knock you towards the left. If he's facing the right side, the knockback will knock you towards the right. And getting knocked back is quite deadly, because if you get knocked back, you could get stunned, and that very frequently happens to bossers. So once again, this goes back to my same thing about teleport versus flash jump. Obviously, teleport users do have an advantage here, and flash jump users do have to move earlier, which is quite stressful, judging from the fact that you can't really see the tails. Now, this goes back to a discussion where we talk about this early on in this thing, where I talk about the most important thing, the breakthrough. A lot of people, once again, they go into Vellum and they just try to survive, which is good. But then after the survival, they have really sloppy control. They stand anywhere else, and their placement is bad. They don't understand how the tails work. The tails will target you, and especially with the green attack, with all the green slime on the ground, you really can't see the tails circles sometimes. But the thing is, as a bosser, even if you can't see the tail circle, you should know that the tail is there. So you're using teleport or using flash jump, whatever it is you're using, you already know the tail is there. You can't see it, but you know it's there. So do a few attacks and move out of the way, because you know the tails are there. And it's really the same way as combating Fireball, which is why I say if you know everything to know about Fireball, you will know everything you need to know about the whole entire Vellum run. So Fireball really is the key to also learning the green slime attack. Obviously, you have Mihail Link's skill, use it, but if you don't have Mihail Link's skill, just know how he knocks you back. And if you need to run away, go for it, run away, but what I urge you to do is I urge you to actually practice the green attack, because once again, it is a scary attack. So yeah, that's really all you need to know about the green attack. It's scary, but with practice, you will get it down perfectly. The final attack that he uses is called Deep Breath, and Deep Breath is quite an iconic attack. Everybody sees Vellum using this attack. This would be his Hyper Beam attack, and it's quite a cool attack. So what you need to know about this is if you have a crappy graphics card, you might disconnect. So this was an issue for me in the past, and it still is an issue for me now, but nonetheless, as long as I well, there is no footage of Deep Breath in this video guide. I apologize for that. My computer couldn't handle it. So yeah, there's no recording of that. But of course, if you really want to see what Deep Breath looks like, just go look at a KMS bossing video. Just fast forward to the last half or so, or the last 25%, and you should see Vellum using Hyper Beam. So during this Hyper Beam or Deep Breath mode, it's very simple. You really want to just avoid getting pushed around and getting stunned. So let's talk a little bit about the mechanisms of Deep Breath. First mechanism is the fact that he will show up either on the far left or the far right. So what that basically means is the sooner you recognize that he has teleported to the left or the right side, the sooner you will be ready. The first mistake that people make is when they recognize that Vellum is on the left side, for example, they flash jump all the way to the left side. And this abandons every bit of knowledge you had on Vellum. Why would you go all the way to the left if Vellum is going to show up there? And they jump all the way to the left side, Vellum shows up at the left, Vellum comes up, and they get hit and they die instantly because they stood right where Vellum was coming up. So that really abandons all knowledge of Chaos Vellum. Don't stand on the tail circle on the circle, because that's where he shows up and that's where you get one hit killed. So that's the first tip. That's the first tip for you. The second tip is, once again, we're talking about timings. I keep on saying the word timing because it is so important. When you are fighting Vellum, you should know instantly when he's teleported. You don't wait for the message to say Vellum is taking a deep breath to recognize that he has teleported, because by then you've prepared a little bit late. A lot of good bossers, they know instantly when Vellum is gone. They know instantly when Vellum has teleported to whatever side, so they instantly recognize it and they immediately go after it. Now, if you, for some reason, don't know where Vellum is, stand still for just a split second, and Vellum will, you'll either slowly move to the left or slowly move to the right side. If Vellum pulls you to the left side, flash jump to the left side. If Vellum pulls you to the right side, flash jump to the right side, because he's taking a deep breath, quite literally. Which means if he's taking a deep breath, he's inhaling heavily, and that's why you're getting pulled to that direction. So flash jump to that direction because that's where you want to be, because that's the only place that you can be without dying. Ice Lightning mages have an advantage here. Their binds gives them invincibility. Paladins have Sacrosanctity, which also gives them invincibility. However, you really don't want to rely on these skills. You really want to rely on your own knowledge of Vellum. So just recognize that's how Deep Breath works. So I feel like the most important takeaway for Deep Breath is to understand timings and realize immediately when he's gone. Don't be surprised by the message that says Vellum is currently taking a deep breath. Don't be surprised by that message. If that message is your first realization that Vellum has teleported, then your timings are wrong, and you need to examine Vellum a little bit more so you can understand when he's actually teleported. So that I basically talked about every single attack. I talked a little bit about the the different things that you can do for different characters. The only tips I can give are to stay close to the main body, because the main body, once again, we're talking about control here, and if you stay close and you move as least as possible and only move when absolutely necessary, this will give you the most amount of control in Vellum, because once again, when you fight Vellum, it is you versus Vellum if you're doing a solo. So as a solo, it's just you versus him, and that's quite simple. So this is a guide exclusively for soloing Chaos Vellum. So if you are using this video to do like group boss runs, the same tips do apply. However, it is a little bit more different. And basically, I'll mention that really quickly, but then afterwards, this video is too long, so I'll have to cut it off. What you need to know about group boss runs is Vellum targets one person. And that means if you have 6 people attacking Vellum, even though there are 6 people, he doesn't just target all 6 people. He targets one person. And what we use the term for is we use the term aggro, which means aggressiveness. And that means Vellum is aggressive towards that person. And what that means is Vellum will target that person, and the other 5 bosses can really just stand in the back and attack Vellum's blind side, basically. So for the most part, that's generally what happens. However, when there are multiple people in the map, Vellum's tails become a little bit more sporadic and a little more unpredictable, so that is a little bit more annoying, but that's what happens when you have multiple people on the map. So the easiest thing to do is, if you cap, just go in as a solo, don't ask a bishop to follow you or anything, and just do it as a solo. So yeah, that's really all I can say about Vellum. Other things that you can do to help you are, if you have a bishop friend, ask them to give you the level 170 hyper skill, which gives you 1 extra life, because that does definitely help. Other things are obviously the pet auto buff gems, which I talk about, greatly important. And of course, if you really need to, you can use buff freezers, but I don't recommend it. So yeah, that is Chaos Vellum. Quite a fun boss to do. If you have high % drop rate, you can make quite a bit of profit from this boss, but if not, you can at least have the satisfaction of killing one of the most difficult bosses in the game. So yeah, this is my guide for Chaos Vellum, and if you really have any questions or anything like that, definitely leave it in the comment section below. I will try my best to answer it. I am, of course, a bossing enthusiast. I love bossing. It's really fun for me, and I do bosses on multiple characters and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I really love bossing. So yeah, if you have questions, definitely ask me. And the easiest place to contact me, if you want an immediate answer, private message me on Basil Market. If you don't care too much about an immediate answer, you can just leave it in the comment section below, whatever is more convenient for you. You can private message me on YouTube, but I really don't check my private messages on YouTube. So if you really want a fast response, don't private message me on YouTube. So yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you had fun, hope you learned something, and I will see you guys later.